Hello everyone. Good evening. I'm Rodrigo. I'm from Talking FL. Talking to teachers recently, we noticed that there is a growing interest in questions about CPD, professional development. It's always about the cost. Teachers worried about spending too much money in professional development, or there is a belief that you need to be or be working for an institution that supports you financially or gives you some kind of structure for you to develop professionally. So that's the motivation for the chat today. And that's why I'm here with Claire Venables, who's going to talk a little bit about her journey as a young learner teacher. And kindly, she's going to share some tips, some advice for the young learner teachers who is looking for professional development. Hi, Claire.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me for this little chat. It's great to see you again. How are you?
I'm very, very good, thank you. And then we are very, very thankful for you to choosing us to talk to.
Thank you so much for having me on. You know, this is a topic that you and I have talked about before,
Yes.
and it's something that I'm really interested in. What you just said now really resonates with me. I've noticed this growing online, at least in our growth chats and whatnot. There is this growing interest in developing.
Yes, there is.
Everyone is starting to, certainly in my circle, people are starting to take teaching English more seriously as a career, and it's great to see, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, because it shows that teachers are now more aware of the fact that it's not only about going to the class and performing some tasks or activities. It's about understanding people.
Yeah. Right. It's not the bico that we keep hearing about, right? I don't know how you translate that, but like a sideline job that you do.
Yeah, we say we used to say bico, and it's sadly it's very common, and it's how most of the teachers start. Like I started like that.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yes, I started like teaching part-time just to make ends meet.
Right.
You know, but then I got bitten by the
ELT bug.
The ELT bug, I guess.
Well, I can relate. I think that your story, because I know how you started teaching kids, your story and my story are very similar. And in fact, I think a lot of people who do know me might not realize that I am a young learner teacher. I have been a young learner teacher in the classroom, doing the hard yards for many, many years. So I'm very, very much connected with the struggle that it can be, especially for the young learner teacher, to find the time and the financial resources to be able to do professional development. So when you invited me to talk about this topic, the first thing that came into my mind was, what can I talk about? What can I share from my own journey that did not involve spending money or time? And I know that sounds like a bit of a funny thing to do, because you know I am a teacher trainer and I sell courses, and I am a huge advocate for formal professional development, formal training, and the diploma, the Trinity diploma that I did in Barcelona many, many years ago was definitively the best investment that I ever made. I am in favour, but I am also aware that many young learner teachers like me, we don't get paid. Yes. We don't get paid what we deserve, and it is a struggle. It is a struggle. I don't know whether you know this, but when I moved to Brazil 8 years ago now, in 2011, I gave up my career in Barcelona, where I was the Director of Studies at Oxford TEFL. And I came here and I started out from zero again. It felt like that anyway. It was hard to find a place for me in Vitoria, in the ELT scene there, because the community at the time was pretty much non-existent. So I felt alone. I felt disconnected from my ELT community, and
no support at all.
No support at all. No, I didn't know anyone who was serious about teaching in the same way that my community was in Barcelona, and it was tough. it was really tough, and I accepted a job at a school where I was getting paid 18 reais an hour.
Okay.
And I was working crazy hours with very little resources and zero professional development. And I'm almost 100% positive that there are people watching us right now who are nodding their heads saying, yeah,
yes,
that is their story, because this is very, very common.
Yes, it's like most of them start actually, especially when it comes to young learners. And I think I've been there. I started like something 18, 20 reais an hour, like buying materials.
Yes.
Preparing everything by myself. And then when you don't have, as you said before, a community to support you, or to maybe to show you a path, you actually don't know what to do. So you end up like just going there and delivering some book exercises, having children repeat some words, looking at flashcards, and that's it.
Yeah, and that can have really, we laugh about it now because we've moved on to that, but on a serious note, that kind of lack of preparation, that lack of awareness of all of the intricacies that are required or that go into teaching young learners, it can have really negative consequences for the school, for the teacher, but especially for the kids.
Yes.
And it's about time, you know, I've been on this sort of mission. Anyone who speaks to me about this knows how I sort of rant about how we need to start recognizing the value and the importance of the young learner teacher. We need to start looking at just how complex this job is and how important it is to have trained professionals right from the earliest stages of language learning. If not, we cannot justify this boom that we've seen in Brazil of English at a younger and younger age in more and more contexts. So I think that it's, on one hand, it's an exciting time to be a young learner teacher, but on the other hand, we are still struggling with things like professional development, resources, support from the schools that we work in. So where does that leave us? Well, that's what I want to talk about now.
Going from the thing that we began talking, like teachers understanding that they have to spend a lot of time and etc. So what would you say to the teacher that is, whether starting a career as a teacher or a teacher who had that click, you know, that, okay, so
this is what I want to do.
Yeah, this is what I want to do. How can I prepare myself for that?
Okay, I think all of the advice that I have for young learner teachers. Okay, all of the advice that I have for young learner teachers, I think, could be applicable for a teacher at any stage of their career.
Okay.
These are all things that have been really beneficial, useful for me in my own professional development journey, especially at a time where I couldn't afford financially or time-wise to invest a lot in professional development. But guess what? You don't need to take courses. Courses are great.
Yes.
Please don't start everyone for a class, and you don't need to take courses. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is there is a real need for teachers to be able to do this on their own terms. There is a real need for teacher-led professional development, and there are ways that we can do it. So let's talk about that. The first one I think that I'd like to talk about is the easiest one to do. Like I said, we always think CPD, continual professional development, it's something that happens outside of the classroom. It's the books that you read, it's the courses that you do, it's the conferences that you attend. But for me, the most powerful transformation in my teaching practice occurs inside my classroom. You don't need to take a course to hone your skills. So that's my number one tip. Invest time.
Your skills.
Hone your skills. Hone your skills. And there is a colleague of mine who's actually recorded a video for me that I will give you the link to.
Yes.
His name's Dirk, and he is the teacher researcher. And he has this little video where he explains the steps that you can take to do action research. And action research, the teacher as a researcher is a concept that I absolutely adore. It's something that's been really beneficial for me when I have been able to observe aspects of my own teaching practice that are concerning to me and think, well, that's something that I need to develop and work on, come up with a strategy for what I'm going to try next to improve, put it into practice, keep reflecting on it. And it becomes this sort of cycle that is really beneficial. And I'm going to link you to that video. It's worth watching.
Please, and we are going to put the link for this video afterwards here in the description.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of skills that you can work on that are essential for the young learner teacher. And some of those are things like storytelling. No one's born a good storyteller. It's a skill that you develop. And you know, you just wouldn't imagine how many books I know off by heart. I know so many children's stories off by heart, and that's because I've read them so many times to kids, but I've also practiced them. I've practiced being able to sit there in my chair and keep my eye contact with the group while I hold the book so that everyone can see it, and I do my gestures, or I'm using my puppets, or whatever. These are all skills that you need to know to be able to be a really good storyteller, and it's an essential skill for the young learner teacher. It's just one example. But there's storytelling, there's classroom management. Build up a repertoire of techniques that you can use to manage students, transitioning them from one area to another, getting their attention. Again,
engaging them, as you said. But remember, I told you once, and I must confess here live, I'm not good at storytelling. I am aware of that because I don't know. I told you before. One thing is to read books to your daughter by the bed before sleeping.
I'm so glad you're doing that, by the way.
Oh yeah, we love that. Hi, Mariana. But in the classroom, it's completely different, and
it's a different set of skills.
Yes, and I understand teachers who sometimes are not necessarily avoiding, but they are afraid of doing it. Like, okay, it's not that engaging. I keep reading a book, and then students are doing other things. Like,
listen, every time I hear a teacher say to me, "Oh, my children don't like listening to stories," internally I'm rolling my eyes because children love storytelling. Storytelling is an art form. It is something that we should all be doing. I keep going on about storytelling, but I could say the same thing about art and craft, which is my development area. I'm not very good at doing art and craft activities, but it's an area that I need to work on. Songs, the classroom management that I mentioned. There are lots of things that we can work on we can and we should get good at. So that was I keep taking a long time with this first piece of advice, but basically get into your classroom and hone your skills. Do action research and get good at all of those things that we know and love in a young learner teacher. Those essential skills. So my number.
Can I just
of course
add one more thing? Yeah, because I read an article of yours where you talk about that, and then you talk about 360 feedback.
360-degree feedback.
Yes. And is that a good idea? Like, I am doing this, I am like taking notes, I am paying attention, reflecting upon my practice, inviting a more capable peer, or
getting some peer observation.
Yes, perhaps? Like, look, I understand this is my weak spot. Would you mind
coming in and giving me advice? I'm absolutely 100% positive from my own personal experience that peer observation can be a very, very powerful tool. I'm also very sure, also from personal experience, that you have to have the right relationship. So if you are in a school or you have a colleague that Nicola Meldrum calls your professional BFF, if you have one of those who you really trust, absolutely organise that. But sadly, I think a lot of us are not in a situation where we can find someone who can come in and observe us. And don't forget that working with kids, there are other complications involved in that too. You can't have anyone coming into your class. But Cecilia Nobody has done some wonderful research on videoing and using video recordings. I've got a video from her as well where she talks about it.
Wonderful.
I'll link you up to
so another link. Yeah.
Another link. Oh, this is great, this chat. A lot of things are coming out as we start talking. I have recorded myself in the past unsuccessfully, full disclosure, because I just hate watching myself on video, which sounds strange because I'm always on video.
Yes,
but it's rare that I watch it back because I find it difficult. Yeah, and I think that you have to get used to it, but observed behaviour is never natural behaviour. So you've got to, I don't know, I really like this idea of reflective practice.
So if you don't feel comfortable, or maybe you are kind of afraid that your children are not going to react well with the presence of another person there, so record the lesson and ask a peer to observe and give you some feedback afterwards.
Or even if you observe yourself.
Yeah.
Cecilia talks about building up this sort of like register that over time you can actually see your development if you're looking out for a specific thing. Anyway, check out that link that I'm going to leave for you with that video from Cecilia Nobody.
Okay.
So number 2 is observing. So you just mentioned peer observation, but I would actually like to talk about just observing colleagues, but not ELT colleagues. I have found, again, this is just me, but I hope this helps other people. I found that the most amazing thing for me as a young learner teacher was being able to get into classrooms, regular classrooms of Brazilian children to see how their teachers do it. And I was lucky enough to be working in a regular school where I had some amazing colleagues who, we didn't have a very close personal relationship. I barely spoke Portuguese, but being able to, and they were wonderful teachers, and being able to go into their classroom and just check out how they manage their class, what the routine is like. Rodrigo, when I first came, I didn't know much about Brazilian children. So that's an advantage that a Brazilian English teacher of English has, is that you know what the school routine's like. I didn't know. So I was very surprised, for example, to see that here in Brazil, the age where children are a lot older before they start going to the toilet by themselves. So here I was, in Australia, they're very, very young and they start going to the toilet by themselves. I was sending these little kids to the toilet by themselves and they didn't know what to do. So by observing teachers, you can learn so much about routines, and anything that you can incorporate from the children's regular routine into your routine is super beneficial for your classroom management.
And this is really interesting because when you talk about regular schools, we are talking about bigger groups, most of cases, because most of cases in language institutes we don't have such big groups, and in regular schools
24, 25 kids in my classes.
Okay, so it's
3, 4 and 5 year olds.
So when you realize that, okay, so she
can do it.
She can do it. Yes.
For me it's always been useful, and I've always made an effort to do that. So even if you're in a language school, though, it's really worth going into a regular school if you can get access and checking out teachers in action, experienced teachers in action. And it's very low cost, transport to get there, and low time commitment as well, but so beneficial. But I want to talk to you about something else as well, to do with the observing. This is probably the best tip that I'm going to give you tonight. Observing children at play. So easy to do, and yet when we are planning our lessons, we are planning every single moment. We're filling up that 50 minutes or however long we are with the kids with, most of the time, it's teacher-led action, teacher-led activities, and we are leaving very little time open for observation. And I can't tell you how rich and meaningful the experience is to be able to sit back and watch your children, to observe them. Hand it over to them, let them have a go with the language, let them play, let them do their thing, sit back and observe and take down notes. What are you observing? You're observing what they can and can't do with the language spontaneously yet. It's amazing to see how if you give children a chance, you will see the English emerging. You will observe what they can and can't do physically, which is really important when you are planning developmentally appropriate lessons. You can see what they are interested in, which can also inform your planning. There's so much rich data for you to look at when you observe. And so make space in your lesson plan for that. And that is something that I've learned through the Reggio Media approach. They talk about empty space in the lesson plan. Shout out to Sandra Rodriguez, who was my teacher on that course.
And this is really interesting because I'm thinking now, like when you observe teaching, like maybe talking to a colleague at during break maybe, or then you find elements that are relevant and it can touch the student. Like instead of showing something that you're supposed to, you can use something completely different, working with the same kind of language and etc., but more related to what the kids are talking about. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it can be just a different kind of game. So
Exactly.
you were planning a particular game, but then you realize that during the break they like to play that game.
Yeah, go to the playground and see what games they're playing, and that can. People often talk about motivating. How do you motivate kids? Kids are intrinsically motivated in my experience. What you need to do is tap into what they're interested in. But how can you do that if you don't take the time to find out what it is that they're into? A classic example of this was me going into class with this wonderful lesson planned about can and can't. And oh gosh, I don't even think, this is how unmemorable that lesson was. I can't even remember what I was proposing that we do. But I remember at circle time, I just couldn't get their attention. They just kept going over to this shelf that had all of these superhero figurines on it. All of the superheroes you can imagine. Can you imagine me trying to compete with that? So I stopped trying to compete with it. And I thought, this is what they're interested in. And I created a project, exact same language point, exact same outcome, but all to do with superpowers and superheroes and what they can and can't do. And I'm giving you this example now, but that doesn't mean that you can take that project into your classroom and it's going to work with your kids.
Yes.
But what it means is that through observation of children, you are better informed and it better informs your lesson planning and implementation. So that's tip 2. Observe professionals and observe children. Observe them. Okay, should we move on to number 3?
Yes, please.
Okay, so number 3 for me, I've made notes. Obviously, I've prepared for this, but it's very spontaneous.
Of course, yeah.
So my number 3 tip here for you is something that has been very important for me, and that's getting your work noticed and valued by the school community. Okay, I feel like this is a tip that I can give you that will transform the way, not just what you're doing in your classroom, but the way you feel as a professional, and it will help keep you motivated and improving throughout the long school year, And let me explain what I mean by that. When your work starts to be noticed, if the magic happening in your classroom, in those 4 walls, starts getting noticed beyond the classroom, this can have really positive repercussions. And this is why I think I can give you some tips. The first tip for me that was really important for me was connecting with parents. And anyone who knows anything about education will tell you about this importance about the homeschool link. The same thing is true of the English classroom home link. We can really benefit through a partnership with parents. And what did that look like for me? It's not easy for a lot of people because due to timetables or maybe even the school that they're working at, you don't have easy access all the time to parents. And this seems to be, I see a lot of teachers creating this, oh, I can't do this, and I'm not. It's worth making the effort to reach out to parents and connect with them.
Sure.
So for me, what did that look like? It meant arriving at class before class started and being physically present and available, making myself physically available, standing there, making eye contact with people, saying hi to people. This is what actually Stephen Covey, nothing to do with ELT, but he talks about this idea of putting credit into the emotional bank account. And this is really important when you're working with children, because at some point during the year, you might have to go to those parents and say, listen, I need your help. You're a child, having a few difficulties in the classroom. If you haven't had prior contact with that parent, if you haven't made deposits into that emotional bank account, you are not going to get the help and support that you want. On the other hand, if you have said hi to that parent every day, you've given them a little clue, or you've told them a little anecdote about what their child did in class the other day, if you've sent home pictures, videos, if you sent them a link to a song that you've been singing.
Yeah, you mentioned that, right, a week ago, and I thought that was an amazing idea, because we kind of think about this, but only in the end of the term.
Yeah.
Like, oh, so look what they have done, and it's sad, but this is like after everything.
It's a process and a relationship.
This should be in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Building these reports since the beginning.
Absolutely. I'm not using the word homework, but I do. I do have a lot of really nice ideas for ways of getting the parents involved, and I think parental involvement. Happy parents, happy school, happy teacher. Happy kids. It's only positive. I promise you, it's only positive. So another way that you can do that is by offering what I call an open doors day. Instead of having the parents come in and watch their kids sing heads, shoulders, knees, and toes, what I do is I invite the parents in so that they can see what the class looks like, and I invite them to participate in the class. And I run a mini class, and we do all of the things that I do with the kids. And the parents are usually like, that's not what we had when we were at school. There is no book on the table here.
Yeah.
Where is to be? So showing them all of those wonderful things that you're doing in the classroom gets them on your side. And I think that's really important.
Not actually showing a rehearsed piece of a song, or
there are moments for that as well,
yes.
Right? Like there are moments for that for sure.
Beautiful, but not sometimes impactful, right? Because when you are there, like, okay, so this is what happened.
This is what it looks like. This is what the fuss is about. You know, this is something that this is the best. This is my best practice that I want to showcase for you. And isn't it true that if you know you have an audience, you will always make a bigger effort.
Yeah.
So create a blog or get permission from your parents. We're using children's images. Always get signed permission before you use this. But creating, and you can actually, there's a lot of platforms nowadays that you can have that are private as well. There are a lot of apps that you can use. But having some kind of digital register of the things that are going on in your classroom is amazing. It creates a connection for the parents so that they know what's going on. It encourages you to do a better job at whatever it is that you're doing, because you know you're going to have an audience for that. And for me, that was really, really good. You can see my Instagram account. I've really gone to effort I put my best stuff on Instagram. You know, I'm not just, so it has this sort of knock-on effect. I'm sharing with you, so I'm making a bigger effort because I know that there's going to be people seeing it. So it's
I will try that in my classroom.
Yeah.
And then something good happens, and then I talk to my peers in my staff room, and then things go.
Oh, I saw that idea that you did. I'm going to give it a go. It's only good things. And here's another thing as well. Take English outside of the classroom. Why is it that English seems to be something so separate from the life of a school. Get involved. Get involved and make sure that you have space in your school where people can see the work that you've been doing in class, or see photographs, or if you have, for example, a celebration at the school, say, hey, can we do something in English at this? San Juan. Do you know what I used to do every year at San Juan? There is what we call in Australia, we call it a bush dance. And bush dances are very typical from Australia, and I'll teach you one. But it's kind of like country and western dancing, but it's kind of that San Juan feel to it. So I used to teach the kids this bush dance called the heel and toe polka, and we perform it for the parents. And then we call the parents in, and the parents would have to learn it, and it was just... So I would make the English program present. I would bring it out. It's all about taking the magic that's happening in the classroom and bringing it outside. Yeah. And of course, yeah, there's like I've already said this, document everything. Document everything for your own professional development, but also you start building up a portfolio. And that is really, really good for you to have some kind of record of the things that you do. You know, I've got amazing lesson plans that took me extra long to do at the time, but now I have resources that I can share or even sell. Or even sell. I'm not even kidding you right now.
Are you right now? Are you writing?
Yeah. Trust me. Put in the effort now, and it will come back. Okay. So this is the last one. How are we doing for time? Have I gone over?
No. Yeah, we have time.
Great. Yeah. So the last thing that I'd like to share with you is the teacher toolkit, and it's something that I've been going on and on about. Because I've already got my eyes on 2019. Good. And starting off the school year. Do you know what a teaching toolkit is?
Yes, but I want you to explain. Please share with our audience.
Okay. Well, he probably knows because I have been going on about it a lot. Because I'm very excited about it. So the teaching toolkit it's basically your plan B. And every good young learner teacher knows you need a plan B and C and D. But it's your plan B. It's materials. It's those songs and games and activities that you have at the click of your fingers if you need to mix things up. You see that you're losing the students because they've been sitting down too long. You have a song that you can do. An activity's not working out. Grab your bean bags and let's throw bean bags to each other. It's your get out of jail free card, and it can save your life, basically. So you're teaching
the red button. Yeah.
So what do I have in my teaching toolkit? Let me tell you a couple of little things that I have that I think that every young learner teacher can benefit from. I do have bean bags. Okay. Bean bags for me are one of the most versatile, fun, always work material that you can use in many different ways with students of different proficiency levels. You know bean bags?
Yes.
Yeah.
Little ones. Yeah.
Little ones. Whatever size. But I have these little ones for the kids, and you can check out my Instagram has some great activities there for how to use those bean bags. But bean bags are great to have. And another thing that I really like using too are dancing ribbons or rainbow ribbons.
The ones.
Yeah, that you use when you're dancing. It just makes any kind of song that you have that the kids don't know the lyrics for yet, and you're trying to introduce it, get them waving around some ribbons, and they are into it. I also like, I'm giving away so many ideas. I'm actually doing this is a spoiler for my workshop on Friday, but one of the ideas that I do with the ribbons is I have free dancing time on the last class of the week.
Oh.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect. You're tired, they're tired. I mean, you just can't, even if you are doing content with them, they're not absorbing anything. It's the end of the week. No one wants to be there. Put on some music, and this works really well with Brazilian kids.
Okay, yeah.
Put on some music. Let them choose the song. I'd probably listen to that song Happy about 50 million times. And remember that Frozen song?
Oh let it go.
That was weeks on end, that one. But put on a song that they really love to dance to, give them some ribbons to move around, and they are off. And just do 5 minutes at the end before they leave. Do you know what this does?
Sorry. What?
This makes their last memory for the week of English a really happy one. And that they leave that class and they're like, they want to come back. They can't wait to get back again.
And coming back to parents again. When parents like pick them up, they see their eyes and etc. So the joy of like, oh, we were dancing and etc. So that's like I put some mark, in their memories and say, okay, so I was picking up my son
and they came out with a big smile on their face, singing the song "Let It Go," whatever. But let me tell you, so that's how I use the one way that I use the dancing ribbons. The other thing that I have in my teaching toolkit are these calm down bottles. They're like sensory bottles. And depending, there's lots of different ways to use these as well. You can use them to practice language. There are lots of ways to use these bottles. But one of the ways that I'd like to share with you now is, in my classroom, we have, I need a new name for this because it sounds terrible, the timeout area.
Timeout.
Yeah, no one uses timeout anymore, but I don't mean that kind of timeout. I mean, sometimes kids need a space that they can go to when they need to rest, especially the very little ones. And sometimes we insist that the children stay in lockstep with the rest of the group, and it's no good for them, and it's no good for the teacher, and it ends up being no good for the group. So having some kind of comfortable, beautiful space where kids can go to, shake up a calm down bottle, watch all of the materials inside that bottle slowly settle, calm down, feel good, and rejoin the group has been something that has been really good for me and really good for my students. So, there's lots of other things. I've got a Pinterest board that we can link to with lots of other ideas. These are all things that you can make.
Yeah, I was watching your stories, I think today or yesterday, I cannot remember, but you showed a picture, like you were kind of a plastic pot with some beans, colored beans. And I thought that was amazing because you can work on vocab there, but also like having the sensory experience of touching things. And then I remember that you mentioned like better than flashcards.
Better than flashcards, yeah.
They are connecting, like feeling things.
Yeah, it's a sensory experience as well as like.
And they can like build something together.
This is part of this, what I told you about before about using loose parts in my class. And coincidentally, this is a coincidence, I swear to God. But tonight, I am sending out an email to the active English teaching community. And in this email, I'm going to be talking about free play and how to do it and why we do it. And I'm going to be talking about giving 3 ideas about how to use loose parts with examples.
So it's going to be today?
Yeah, later on tonight. So if you are part of the active English community, you'll be receiving that email. And if not, I will put in a link and you can join us and you can get this email, and I am going to be giving away a loose parts starter kit. So yeah, lots of materials in there. Pom-poms, styrofoam balls, feathers, buttons, marbles, toothpicks, lots of things that you can use to give this idea of loose parts a go. Yeah.
We make the link available here.
Yeah, great. And if you are in Sao Paulo and you want to come along to my workshop on Friday about the teaching toolkit, you're welcome. But guess what? You don't need to do this workshop to create your own teaching toolkit. You don't need to pay for any of the tips that I have given you today. This is all about teachers. It is a genuine desire of mine to help teachers empower themselves to become the best versions of their professional selves. And together, we can transform the way English is taught to children in Brazil.
Yes.
So, recapping, tip number 1 was?
Tip number 1 was very good. Reflective.
Hone your skills.
Hone your skills.
That's right. Hone your skills through reflective practice, through brushing up on your essential skills, etc. 2 was observing other teachers, like you mentioned, being observed. And observing children. Tip number
super important.
Incredible. Don't do it. Tip number 3 was sharing your teaching out beyond the walls of the classroom.
Yes.
So
share good practices, share good results.
Yeah, getting valued for the wonderful work that you're doing is really good.
Mm-hmm.
And tip number 4 was your teaching toolkit.
Teacher toolkit.
So that was 4 things that you can do. Don't need to pay any money. Do invest in your professional development, of course. But if you, like us, starting out, did not have the resources, there's still no excuse to not do something. You can develop.
Yeah, and please take advantage of the ELT community now.
Oh yeah,
because we are in a very special moment.
I think so too.
Yeah, teachers are willing to talk, willing to share, willing to be together. So take part of this moment, join in, participate in communities like BRELT community. So subscribe to communities like Active English and share practices. Talking FL is here for you to share. So make contact.
I think not a day goes by that we don't get contacted by teachers asking for advice, asking for help. And I know I've contacted you for help and advice before, and I hope that you know that you can always contact me as well. And that goes for anyone watching as well. Do reach out and get involved, because that's what we're here for.
Well, people, I'd like to say thank you once again. I am pretty sure that the workshop on Friday is going to be a huge success, and I hope there will be other opportunities in the future, because I am really sad that I'm not going to be there. I will be teaching.
Fabi is going.
Fabi is going.
She'll make you a set of materials.
Yeah, Talking FL will be there. But I hope there will be more opportunities later on, so other people can share. I wish you the very best end of 2018.
Thank you so much. We're almost there.
And a wonderful 2019, full of new projects, full of new good experiences. Okay, you deserve it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
for having me. And thank you to all of you for being here.
Thank you, guys. See you soon. Bye-bye.